You are 38 and you have $290,000 in investable assets. You got married 11 years ago in your backyard. 31 guests, folding chairs you borrowed from your church, a dress your aunt found at a consignment shop for $80, and a friend who happened to be a part-time photographer and shot the whole thing for the cost of dinner afterward. Total cost, $500. Your college roommate got married the same year, 6 weeks before you, at a venue with a string quartet and a guest list of 180. The wedding cost $52,000, financed partly through a personal loan he and his wife took out together as their first joint financial decision as a married couple. By the end of this video, you'll definitely see that the wedding loan isn't really a wedding cost. It's a starting position, and the gap between starting a marriage at $500 versus starting it at negative $50,000 compounds for far longer than anyone considers on the actual day. You'll find out exactly what that compounding looks like, year by year. This is your life after the $500 wedding. Year 1. You are 27 and you're newly married with $1,400 combined in a joint savings account 3 weeks after the wedding. Your roommate, 3 weeks into his own marriage, is making the first payment on the loan, $890 a month for 4 years, the interest rate locked at 9.2% because wedding loans, marketed as personal loans for life events, rarely carry favorable terms. He mentions the payment once at a group dinner, lightly, the way people mention things they've decided not to dwell on. You and your spouse open a brokerage account together the same month, the first joint financial decision of your marriage being to invest rather than to repay. You start with $200 a month, modest, deliberately sustainable rather than aggressive. You write the number on a yellow legal pad, $1.19 from the pharmacy down the street, and below it you write the date and nothing else. You also decide, in the same conversation, not to take a honeymoon in the conventional sense. You drive 4 hours to a cabin a friend rents out, stay 3 nights, cook your own meals, and don't post a single photo. The trip costs $310 total. Your roommate's honeymoon, 2 weeks in Portugal, costs $7,800, also partially financed. The first rule. At year 1, the wedding doesn't determine the marriage, but the debt, or the absence of it, determines the first 18 months of every financial conversation the marriage will have. Year 2. You are 28 and your combined investment account has grown to $7,400. Your roommate's loan payment is still $890 a month, 2 years remaining. He and his wife are also, you learn over the same dinner conversation, dealing with a disagreement about a $4,000 kitchen renovation neither of them had budgeted for, the wedding debt having absorbed the buffer that would have otherwise made the renovation a simple decision rather than a tense one. You and your spouse have started what you privately call the no occasion rule, declining the social pressure to mark every milestone with a trip or a purchase specifically built to be documented and shown. A friend's bachelorette weekend invitation arrives with a price tag of $1,100 for 3 nights. You decline the trip, attend a smaller local celebration instead, and your friend doesn't seem to mind, though 2 other invitees who also declined mention, separately, that they wished they'd said no sooner. This is also where the wedding decision and the broader pattern of declining expensive, photographed experiences start to connect into something larger than just the wedding itself. Because the same logic that kept your wedding at $500 is the logic that determines whether you spend the next decade chasing documented experiences or building towards something that compounds quietly instead. I broke down the full 10-year version of that decision. What happens when you opt out of the Instagram vacation specifically, year after year, and what it produces by year 10, in the video appearing right now. But for now, let's stay with what's happening to the marriage and the money as year 2 closes. Your combined investment account crosses $7,400. Your roommate's net worth, 2 years into marriage, is negative $31,000. The second rule, at year 2, the pattern from the wedding either becomes the pattern for the marriage or it doesn't, and which way it goes is usually decided in small, undramatic moments like a declined bachelorette invitation. Year 3. You are 29 and you and your spouse buy your first home together, a modest townhouse, $240,000, with a 10% down payment built almost entirely from money that would have gone toward a wedding venue, a larger guest list, and a destination honeymoon. The closing is quiet. No drama, no financing complications, because your combined credit and savings profile reads as exactly what it is. A couple who has spent 3 years making small, consistent decisions rather than one large, impressive one. Your roommate and his wife are still renting, the wedding loan payment occupying the space in their budget that would otherwise be a down payment fund. He mentions, at a different dinner, that they're thinking about it but the timing isn't right yet. You don't ask what specifically isn't right. You suspect you already know, the same way you suspected it at the dinner 2 years earlier when the kitchen renovation became a fight instead of a decision. Your combined investment account, separate from the home purchase, has grown to $16,200. The third rule: at year 3, the $500 wedding has already produced a home. The $52,000 wedding has already produced a loan payment with 2 years remaining and a renting couple still waiting for the timing to be right. Year 5. You are 31, and your combined net worth, including home equity and investments, crosses $61,000. Your roommate's wedding loan is finally paid off this year, 4 years after the wedding. The total cost of the loan, once interest is included, landing at approximately $58,400 against the original $50,000 borrowed. He celebrates the final payment the same way you'd celebrate a finish line: relief more than triumph, the specific relief of putting down something you've been carrying so long you forgot it had weight. You and your spouse have a child this year. The wedding decision, 5 years removed, doesn't come up directly, but its effects are everywhere in the room. The nursery furnished without financing, the maternity leave covered partly by the investment account you've been building since month 3 of your marriage. The absence of any financial tension layered on top of an already exhausting first year of parenthood. Your roommate and his wife, now free of the loan payment, start their own savings for a home, 4 years behind where you started, the gap not closing but holding steady at roughly the size of the wedding itself, plus what it cost in opportunity across the years it took to pay off. The fourth rule: at year 5, the wedding's actual cost isn't the number on the original invoice. It's that number plus everything it delayed. Year 7. You are 33, and your combined investment and home equity crosses $118,000. A close family friend gets engaged and asks for advice, having heard, through the extended family grapevine, that your wedding was small and that you seem to be doing well financially as a result. You're careful in how you answer, not wanting to suggest causation where the relationship is more nuanced than a single decision. The wedding wasn't the cause of your financial position. It was the first visible symptom of a way of thinking you and your spouse happened to share before you ever stood in the backyard in front of 31 folding chairs. You tell her the wedding itself barely matters. What matters is whether the decision-making pattern behind a small wedding is a pattern you and your partner share more broadly. Because a couple who throws a $500 wedding and then spends the next decade on expensive vacations and upgraded everything else hasn't actually solved anything. They've just delayed the spending by one event. She seems to understand this more than she expected to when she asked the question. Your roommate, 3 years past the loan payoff, mentions at a reunion dinner that he sometimes wonders what the wedding actually bought them, beyond one specific evening that, by his own admission, he barely remembers in detail beyond a few photographs. The fifth rule: at year 7, the wedding day itself has become almost irrelevant to both households. What remains is only the financial trajectory each decision set in motion. Year 9. You are 35, and your combined net worth crosses $203,000. You and your spouse have started discussing your child's education fund, a conversation that exists comfortably inside your monthly budget because there was never a wedding loan competing for the same dollars during the years that mattered most for early compounding. Your roommate's family is doing fine, not struggling, simply years behind in a way that has become permanent rather than temporary, the 4 years of loan payments having cost them not $58,400, but closer to $140,000 once the lost compounding on that money, had it been invested instead, is calculated honestly. You don't share this calculation with him. Some math is better understood privately than delivered as a comparison nobody asked for. The sixth rule: At year 9, the gap between the two households isn't about income, which has remained comparable the entire time. It's entirely about the 11 years of decisions that followed one single choice made before either marriage had even technically begun. Year 11. You are 38 and you have $290,000 in investable assets, separate from $94,000 in home equity. You sit at your kitchen table, the same yellow legal pad, 11th volume now, same pharmacy, same $1.19, and you write the number from 11 years ago at the top of a fresh page, $500. Below it you write today's combined number, $384,000. Your roommate's family, this same week, mentioned during a casual call that they're finally close to a home down payment, 11 years after his own wedding, the timeline stretched by a debt that no longer exists on paper, but clearly extended its shadow across the better part of a decade. You don't feel superior thinking about this. You feel something closer to clarity about a fact most people never test directly, that the wedding industry's entire pitch, the idea that the day has to cost what it costs in order to mean what it's supposed to mean, was never actually tested against the alternative by either of you. You tested it. He tested the other version. The results aren't ambiguous. Somewhere right now, a couple is signing for a $50,000 wedding loan, the interest rate higher than either of them has bothered to actually read closely, the venue deposit already paid, the guest list already at 180 and growing. They believe, the way almost everyone believes on the day they sign, that the debt is temporary and the memory is permanent. The memory is permanent either way. The debt determines almost everything else. 31 folding chairs, a consignment dress, a friend with a camera. That was the whole wedding. It was also, 11 years later, the whole foundation.